Why does Epsilon seem completely obsessed with shadow in the Eminence in shadow? Is it love, admiration, loyalty, insecurity, or something much deeper? In this video, we dive into Epsilon's character, her relationship with shadow, her hidden insecurities, her desire for perfection, and the psychological reasons behind her unwavering devotion. We'll explore how shadow changed her life, why she sees him differently than almost anyone else, and what makes her one of the most fascinating members of Shadow Garden. Whether you're a longtime fan of the Eminence in Shadow or just curious about Epsilon's character, this deep analysis will reveal details you may have missed. Spoiler warning for the Eminence in Shadow anime and light novel content. Among all the members of Shadow Garden, there is one character whose admiration for Shadow seems almost limitless. A woman who constantly seeks his approval. A woman who works tirelessly to perfect herself. A woman who appears calm, elegant, and confident on the surface, but underneath that flawless exterior lies a complex mixture of devotion, insecurity, admiration, and ambition. Today we're talking about Epsilon, and more importantly, why is Epsilon so obsessed with shadow? Is it simply love? Is it gratitude? Or is there something much deeper hiding beneath the surface? Let's find out. Part 1 to WA's Epsilon. Before we understand Epsilon's obsession, we first need to understand who she really is. Epsilon is one of the 7 shadows, the original members of Shadow Garden personally saved by Shadow himself. To the outside world, she's known as an incredibly talented and graceful individual. She's intelligent. She's elegant. She's highly skilled in magic control. And she's often viewed as one of the most refined members of Shadow Garden. But unlike Alpha, who naturally possesses leadership qualities, or Delta, who relies on overwhelming instincts and strength, Epsilon's entire identity is built upon one thing: perfection. She wants to be flawless. She wants to be admired. And most importantly, she wants Shadow to recognize her efforts. Part 2, Shadow saved her life. One of the biggest reasons for Epsilon's devotion is surprisingly simple. Shadow changed her life forever. Like the other members of the 7 shadows, Epsilon was suffering from possession before Shadow saved her. At a time when society viewed possessed individuals as monsters or cursed beings, Shadow gave her something nobody else did: hope, acceptance, a future. Imagine being abandoned by the world. Imagine believing your life is over. And then someone appears and saves you, not because they want fame, not because they expect a reward, but simply because they can. For Epsilon, Shadow wasn't just a savior. He became the person who gave her a second chance at life. That kind of gratitude doesn't disappear. It becomes the foundation of loyalty. And in Epsilon's case, that loyalty eventually evolved into something much stronger. Part 3, Shadow is the perfect ideal. Another reason Epsilon is obsessed with Shadow is because he represents everything she wants to become. Think about it. Shadow always appears calm, always confident, always in control. No matter how impossible the situation seems, he never panics. He never doubts himself. He simply moves forward. To Epsilon, Shadow appears almost godlike, not because he's powerful, but because he seems completely free from insecurity. And that's important because insecurity is Epsilon's greatest weakness. Despite her elegance, Epsilon constantly worries about how others perceive her. She wants validation. She wants recognition. She wants proof that she's worthy. Shadow, on the other hand, appears to need none of those things. He simply exists according to his own rules. For Epsilon, that's incredibly attractive, because he embodies the confidence she desperately wishes she possessed. Part 4, The Secret Insecurity. Now let's talk about something fans know very well: Epsilon's insecurity about her body. While this is often played for comedy, it actually reveals a lot about her character. Epsilon is obsessed with maintaining a perfect image. She wants to be seen as beautiful, elegant, refined, superior. But deep down, she constantly compares herself to others. She notices her flaws. She notices what she lacks. And she becomes frustrated by it. This creates an endless cycle. The more insecure she feels, the harder she works. The harder she works, the more she seeks recognition. And the person whose recognition matters most is Shadow. Because in her mind, if Shadow acknowledges her efforts, then all of that hard work becomes meaningful. His approval validates her existence. Part 5, the Shadow never treats her like everyone else. Here's another fascinating detail. Most people are impressed by Epsilon. Many admire her. Some fear her. But Shadow treats her differently. He doesn't obsess over her appearance. He doesn't flatter her. He doesn't constantly praise her. In fact, Shadow often behaves in ways that seem completely detached. Ironically, this makes Epsilon value his opinion even more. Human psychology works in a strange way. The approval that is hardest to obtain often becomes the most valuable. Because Shadow rarely gives obvious praise, every small acknowledgement feels significant. Every compliment becomes precious. Every moment of recognition becomes unforgettable. This creates an emotional loop that keeps Epsilon chasing his approval. Part 6, she wants to be special. Another reason behind Epsilon's obsession is competition. Shadow Garden is filled with extraordinary individuals. Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Zeta, Eta. Every member has unique talents. Every member contributes something valuable. So where does Epsilon fit in? She wants to stand out. She wants to prove she's irreplaceable. She wants Shadow to see her as someone special. Not just another member, not just another follower, but someone worthy of his attention. This desire drives many of her actions, and it explains why she works so relentlessly to improve herself. Part 70 is It's Eat Love. Now we arrive at the question many fans ask. Does Epsilon love Shadow? The answer is complicated. There are definitely romantic elements in her feelings. She admires him. She thinks about him constantly. She seeks his approval. She wants his attention. These are all traits commonly associated with romantic affection. However, her feelings go beyond simple romance. Shadow is also her hero, her mentor, her inspiration, her ideal, her savior. When all of these emotions combine, the result becomes something much stronger than a normal crush. It's a deep emotional attachment built on years of admiration and gratitude. Part 8, the tragedy of Epsilon. What makes Epsilon such an interesting character is that her obsession is also her tragedy. No matter how much she improves, she never feels perfect. No matter how much she accomplishes, she always sees another flaw. No matter how much Shadow values her, she still wonders if she's good enough. This is why so many fans relate to her. Because beneath all the comedy and over-the-top moments lies a very human struggle. The desire to be enough. The desire to be recognized. The desire to feel worthy. Epsilon isn't chasing perfection because she enjoys it. She's chasing perfection because she's afraid of imperfection. And Shadow unintentionally becomes the measuring stick she uses to judge herself. Part 9, why Shadow doesn't even realize it. Perhaps the funniest aspect of all this is that Shadow himself barely understands what's happening, while Epsilon views him as a legendary figure, while Shadow Garden treats him like a mastermind. Shadow is often focused on his own fantasies and role-playing as the ultimate mysterious hero. This creates one of the series' greatest ironies. Epsilon sees profound meaning in everything Shadow does. Meanwhile, Shadow often has completely different intentions. Yet somehow this misunderstanding only strengthens her admiration, because every action she witnesses seems to confirm her belief that Shadow is extraordinary. Conclusion. So why is Epsilon obsessed with Shadow? Because he saved her life, because he gave her purpose, because he represents the confidence she wishes she had, because his approval means more than anyone else's, because she wants to prove herself worthy, and perhaps most importantly, because Shadow became the center of the ideal she has spent her entire life chasing. For Epsilon, Shadow isn't just a leader. He isn't just a powerful warrior. He isn't even just a love interest. He's the person who transformed her world, and that's why her devotion runs so deep. Narrator, but what do you think? Is Epsilon's obsession driven by love, admiration, gratitude, or something else entirely? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Eminence in Shadow, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more anime analysis videos. Until next time, stay in the shadows.